In this video, I'm showing you how I built a giant castle in Minecraft. Now, I spent far too much time on this video, so any support is actually hugely appreciated. Now, this is part 1 of a 2-part series, so I haven't done the interior or the town surrounding the castle yet, and I'll do that in part 2 if this is well received. Enjoy! So I started with designing one of the main towers that are going to connect up the walls, and I had a bit of experience building towers, so I knew kind of what I wanted them to look like, and I made the roof actually to blackstone because I thought that would work far better with the color palette that I had in mind for this build. Now, one thing that you can notice is that they are not in a square line with each other. And that is actually on purpose, since a lot of castle can suffer from just looking incredibly square. And that is something that I didn't want to have to deal with this castle. So even though it is a bit skewed, that is actually on purpose. When I had all the smaller towers put in, I started with the walls. Now with the walls, I just used the same color palette as I used for the towers, more or less. And I also used a lot of, cobblestone and andesite walls at the top, you can see there, because they're not quite as big as a full block, but they're still, kind of solid, and it gives a great change in depth. I'm also relying heavily on chains and dark oak fences, since those can kind of break up the monotony of a build, make it a lot more interesting to look at. Now here I'm just trying to start designing the main entrance, and you can see me just doing one of the towers. I wanted a kind of archway, and after a few tries I got it till where I was happy, and then I just cut it to the other side. Now, when I was happy with the doors, which took a while since I hadn't really built any before, I just connected it up with walls to, the main section of wall. Now, you could see when I was building the walls that I was using wool to mark out how everything was going to line up, and that is exactly what I did here with the bricks. Because if you don't do this, it can be incredibly hard to, see exactly what you're going to do. But now I had a good idea of how the castle, at least the main part, was going to look. So when I was happy with the overall shape, I started with the entrance. Now here first, you can see I used a lot of dark oak, but I wasn't really happy with that. And then I tried exchanging it for blackstone. That didn't really work as well. So I ended up just using a bit of blackstone walls, which I thought worked really quite well, because if I'd just done the entire roof with blackstone, it would have been far too dark for the color palette that I actually wanted. Now for the walls, I did a quite simple thing with just a window and a bit of detail, and here I started on one of the main sides of the castle. You can see me mixing up the light grey concrete with bricks and stone and even coal at the bottom, and also creating kind of interesting textures with the help of walls and fences. And then I created a bit of an overhang using the roof, which is so important. If you don't do that, then you'll have great problems making it look nice. You can see I mixed up the roof with some stairs and also some walls. This is so important, because if I wouldn't have done that, first of all, it would have looked a bit flat. Second of all, it would have been far too dark. Now it's kind of mixed up and it doesn't look too extreme, and I absolutely love how it looks. Here you can see with that wall I tried to make it a slight incline, just to make the overall shape of the build a tiny bit more interesting. Now this part over here was only added to the actual shape to make it a lot more dynamic, since if we would just have a square part as a castle, it would be so much harder to build. Now here for the stables I just mixed up the ground a bit, put a few hay bales in and a few horses, and it looked quite good. Now here you can see me doing a similar trick with the incline of the stairs on the wall, because it just makes, as I just mentioned, the whole build look a lot more dynamic. That is also the purpose of this tower here. You can see this kind of balcony with an overhang I thought looked really cool, and if you just add a tiny bit of like furniture and some green stuff, leaves, it just looks like the place has a lot more life in it, which is absolutely essential if you ask me, if you're trying to build a build. Build a build? Well. Now I just finished up some small parts over here and created this little overhang, which is also just to mix up the kind of shape of the roof, because even though I have these walls and stairs on the top of the roof, it could still look a bit bland if I didn't have that. Now I went on to the kind of main bulk of the tower, which I created in two segments. One which was a tiny bit bigger and one which was a tiny bit lower, just because I wanted, you know, as I've already mentioned, the shape to be kind of interesting and not just a square tower with a bit of detail. And when I was happy with kind of the front design of the walls, I did this kind of tilted roof here, which I thought looked really quite good. And here you can just see me finishing up a few untouched spots. And now I'm just connecting the roof here because I thought that was the only way to make it look, you know, really natural. And here I'm just finishing up the main part of the tower. Now, as I've said in the intro, I've spent a lot of time on this build, and therefore I'm just so happy with how it turned out. As I've said, I haven't done the interior or the town surrounding it yet, and if this, you know, is appreciated, then I will do a part 2 when I'm creating all that, and I might even terraform the terrain around it a bit. But here you can see how the end product of at least the outside of the build turned out, and I'm so happy with it. I think this went so well because I planned it out exactly how I wanted it, and then just filling it in later, it's so much easier than just going on feeling. Now, because I've spent so many hours on this build, I think it's around 50, I would hugely appreciate if you would just drop a like on this video, or subscribe if you really enjoyed it. And if it's well received, I'll hopefully see you in part 2. Anyways, that's it for me. See ya.